Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to North East Water's webinar series aimed at communicating the important work of North East Water to our customers and our community. In today's webinar, we'll share our master planning and growth initiatives. My name is Jo Murdoch, and I'm the Managing Director of North East Water, and I'm really delighted to have you here with us today. North East Water acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we operate and are meeting today. We pay our respect to elders, past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person with us on this webinar today. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so that we can have a smooth session. Please note that all audience members will have their cameras and microphones switched off for this webinar, but this webinar is being recorded and will be available via our website after the session, and we'll send you a link to access the recording afterwards so that you can share it with others. And we encourage you to ask questions. You can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A function, and we'll address as many questions as possible following the presentation. Now, before we dive into our main topic, I'd just like to give you a brief overview of North East Water and what we do. Well, essentially, North East Water plans for and provides critical water and sewage services to 39 towns across a 20,000 square kilometre region, and that's across 7 local government areas. We service 120,000 people, ensuring that they have access to high quality, safe and clean drinking water. We operate 21 water treatment plants and 22 wastewater treatment plants, and we've got an extensive pipe network, some 1,300 kilometres of sewer mains and 1,800 kilometres of water mains. And we've got assets valued at $1.6 billion, and we are committed to investing in them and maintaining our infrastructure to meet current and future demands. And one thing you may not know, but North East Water has one of the lowest water bills in Victoria and across the nation. And our average residential bill is around $1,040 per year, and that was in 23-24. We're committed to using 100% renewable energy from 2025 and net zero emissions by 2035. We also survey 2,000 customers a year, and from this, we know that customer satisfaction with our services is above 90%. And I'd like to thank all of our customers for the trust and the support that they provide to North East Water. And finally, we are proud to employ 208 local employees who provide exceptional service and support to our community, and I've got a number of them on this webinar with me today. Now, the focus of North East Water is absolutely on water and wastewater security for the North East region. It's on environmental and health compliance, so ensuring that our drinking water is safe and compliant to drink, and that we are caring for our environment in terms of how we operate our systems and our services. Our focus is on adapting to climate change, and particularly the volatility that we're seeing with climate in terms of whether it's bushfires or just come off 3 years of La Nina, or whether it's storms and other weather events. It's about reducing our emissions and also reducing our waste and turning our waste into a value add product, not just having waste. It's also, which is very important for this session, is around supporting growth and development and meeting the new Victorian housing targets. And there's a range of other focus areas. Customer affordability and support is very important. Managing the escalating costs of goods and services and construction at any given time. Cybersecurity, circular economy, partnerships and collaboration, and particularly financial stewardship for long-term value for our customers who fund the business. And we are at the moment engaging on our next price path, and we'll provide some more information about that in a moment. I would like to talk about our strategy next. And Luke, I might get you to thank you. North East Water recently launched its new corporate strategy following 12 months of engagement with our customers and key stakeholders. Now, Strategy 2040 sets out our vision for the future, and That is where North East Water, a vision that North East Water is proactively contributing to a healthy environment, thriving communities, and a prosperous region. Strategy 2040 also makes it very clear that our purpose is to deliver safe, sustainable water and wastewater solutions for our communities. Now, that is our core business. It's what we do each and every day in this complex and changing world around us. Strategy 2040 responds directly to the challenges that I've mentioned on the previous slide and the focus areas that I've mentioned. Now, the prosperous region ambition within Strategy 2040, which is highlighted on this page, places great emphasis on infrastructure planning, asset stewardship, and robust and reliable services. And today's webinar focuses on some of this. So thank you once again for joining us. And I'd now like to introduce Guy Wilson-Brown, General Manager, Planning and Infrastructure, Jill Fagan, who is the Manager of Planning and Livability, and Tim Golland, our Manager of Assets and Development, to talk through our Master Planning Program.
Thanks, Joe, and welcome everyone. We've invested significantly in strategic master planning, and that's virtually been complete for all the main 15 townships throughout northeast Victoria. Particularly that master planning caters for how we're going to respond to growth and particularly meeting the state government housing targets. And we've developed those plans based on the planning assumptions from local government and working very closely with the local councils and their planning frameworks. We've prioritised our capital investment, including an all systems review. We've taken a triple bottom line to that in line with our strategy 2040. So looking at the priorities for the environment, community and economic factors as well. As a result of that master planning, we've taken the key projects out of that master planning and we've now got a 10-year draft program, and I stress that it's very much an early draft, and that's going to be part of the consultation engagement during the price submission over the coming months. We have invested significantly in our current pricing period. So our current pricing period goes from 2018 to 26. So we've got 2 more years left to run in the current pricing period. But we're going to be investing about $350 million over the current pricing period. And originally, when we set our pricing period back in 2018, it was forecast to be 141 million. So you can see that the level of investment that North East Water has provided towards all the townships throughout North East Water has significantly increased during this current price period. So we're now looking towards the next price period, which will start in 2026 and will go for 5 years. And today is an important part of that engagement process. We're also going to be having targeted investment with our local councils, developers, consultants and other key stakeholders. And that includes a development forum that we've got coming up on the 21st of November. And that's going to build on developed forums that we've held last year and the year before. Our inaugural forum was in November 2023, and then we followed that up with another really successful forum in May of 2024. So we're going to be building on that and including feedback from the previous sessions. So just a discussion about some of our priorities. I mean, what we're really trying to do is to be prudent and efficient with our investment, making sure that our customers have affordable services and that the organisation is financially sustainable moving into the future. We've got a range of competing priorities for our capital investment program. Capital renewal of our existing assets, really important, responding to climate change, responding to growth, and making sure that we comply with legislation, particularly environmental protection legislation and our environmental duties. We're currently engaging for the next price submission, as I mentioned previously, which is a 5-year period, 2026 to 2031. And look, we understand that affordability and keeping prices as low as we can is really important. So we are looking at all options to keep pressure off our price increases. So we're looking at options for external revenue. We're continuing to grow those, particularly our unregulated revenue sources, such as our farming operations and biochar. So I'd now like to hand over to Jill Fagan, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about our master plans.
Thank you, Guy. So our master plans are water and wastewater infrastructure plans that look out across the next 50 years, and in the case of Wodonga, the next 100 years. They're developed for each of our towns that are experiencing growth. We do service more than 50. We've done 15 master plans, and we do service other towns as well, but if they're not experiencing growth, then we don't need to be doing the same level of planning. They're based on council's growth forecast. So council is the growth planning authority, and we take our growth projections from them and we work with them in close collaboration. Master plans aim to deliver on multiple benefits, not only just what we build in terms of pumps and pipes, but our opportunities in terms of circular economy, integrated water management, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, building resilience and financial resilience. Now, there's a disclaimer down the bottom of that slide, and that's really talking about the fact that these are forward plans. They make estimates about the timeframes and the growth rates, about where development will happen and when, and that is really subject to council's own rezoning decisions and planning decisions. We don't have that role. So next slide, please. Sorry, one other thing to mention about master plans is that they are plans for the future. They are not the CapEx funding as the capital projects. That's done separately, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go through. So this slide shows you about how master plans were developed and the steps that we've undertaken. So the first step is to assess the current situation, understand our current water and wastewater services and the condition of our infrastructure, the age, and we want to understand how much more serviceable life we have out of any given asset before we decide what we're going to build in terms of new stuff. We also want to understand the public health or drinking water quality and environmental factors, regulatory factors that we need to take into account in planning for the future. Then we look at what's anticipated in future, particularly population growth. You'll be aware the North East has experienced a lot of population growth over the last 5 years, and so we're examining what we estimate the future growth to be in close collaboration with Council, as I mentioned, and drawing off any of the regional growth strategies that councils may already have developed. We assess how our current infrastructure can support growth and where we might need new investment to support it. And we look at risks and opportunities, and that's the multiple benefits that I was mentioning on the previous slides, where there might be integrated water management, circular economy, or other benefits that we can provide through our services. Our third step is then what we call infrastructure optioneering. So we get clear about our new infrastructure needs, and then we develop a whole lot of different options to support that. And then we go through what we call optioneering, which is basically doing a multi-criteria scoring against each of those options to determine what is the preferred option that meets multiple objectives. And that is a triple bottom line style assessment, where we look not only at the reliability and safety and quality of water and wastewater services that we provide, but we also look at things like social benefits, environmental protection, and financial factors as well. We look at the timing of investment, and I've mentioned that last point, multiple benefits and opportunities. And then we have our master plans. They are live documents that are updated regularly. They feed into our price submission engagement, which is what we're currently undertaking, and inform our long-term capital program. Next slide, please. So I'll hand over to Tim Golland, who's our Manager of Assets and Development.
Very much, Jill. I want to just take the opportunity just to go a little bit over again some of the conversations we've already had around the housing targets and what that means. There's no doubt a key piece of information when it comes to us planning for growth in Victoria is now the Victorian Government's housing targets. These follow on from the Government's housing statement, which was released in late 2023. We know and that water corporations like us have a role to play in meeting those housing targets, and so that's by and large factored into our master plans, and our master plans take a a view of or a projection of growth that is consistent with meeting those housing targets. What are those numbers? So we are committed to the 31,200 new homes by 2051 across our area of operations, in line with the Victorian housing targets. We know, as has already been touched on, that in the current pricing period, we're spending well over $300 million in infrastructure, which includes $90 million this year alone. In some of our major growth areas, I guess in Wodonga, Wangaratta, Yarrawonga, for example, but also Bright and other towns, we have approximately 3 years worth of housing growth already approved for construction. So we want to make sure that through our prudent investment and our planning processes that we're in a position to be able to deliver on those targets. And yeah, as it's already been touched on, our customers certainly, the expectation on us that we are prudent in how we prioritise that investment is really important for us. I just want to move on quickly to the next slide, which just gives an indication of the breakdown of those 31,200 new homes across the 7 local government areas that we service. There's an asterisk next to Moira, which is simply because some of Moira Shire falls outside of North East Water's area. So it gives us just an indication, I guess, that across the council areas, these are new homes on average per year that we would collectively need to connect in order to meet those housing targets. And then the last column on the right-hand side is the last, I guess, 5 years of real data that has been in terms of lots that have been created from North East Water's perspective. So we're sitting just under 900 on average over the last 5 years. We think the long-term average is over 1,100. So that's what we are effectively planning for. I'll hand over, I think, for what that looks like in terms of future infrastructure investments.
Thank you, Tim. So this slide outlines the process that we go through to determine our capital infrastructure investments. So we need a balanced and realistic approach to investment. We need to stage our investment because we cannot afford to invest in all 15 towns simultaneously that have master plans. However, we've developed the master plans for all of those towns so that we understand all of the infrastructure requirements and we can be, I guess, prioritise and invest in those with a maximum benefit first. So the first step is the master planning, which is what we've talked about. And the second step is the capital projects prioritisation. So this is a multi-criteria assessment that informs the order of investment. So we put all of the projects that have come out of each of the master plans into a big long list, and then we prioritise them. The next step is what we're currently in, which is the price submission engagement, where we hear from customers and stakeholders about what they prioritise for our investment, and we take that on board to inform our submission to the Essential Services Commission for our next price period, which is what that last step is. So our proposed investments are assessed by the Essential Services Commission to determine that they're all prudent and efficient. And through that, they make a decision about the customer tariffs or the charges that we charge to our customers for water and wastewater from 2026 onwards for the next 5 years. So next slide, please, these projects here are the draft top 10 projects for our next price period from 2026 onwards. They are very much early drafts because, as I mentioned, we are in a consultation phase. So what we want to hear is from you and from all of our other customers and stakeholders about where your preferences are in terms of our investment. So these are our capital infrastructure projects. They've been prioritised according to a multi-criteria assessment, as I mentioned, that includes considerations of strategy and innovation, risk, the condition of the existing infrastructure, social and community factors, environmental factors, drinking water quality factors, and financial matters as well. So these scores then help us determine what projects will deliver the biggest benefit, and they get scheduled earlier. So based on that scoring, what's presented on this screen is the top 10 projects proposed in our early draft for the next price period. There are many other projects proposed for that price period. So if you don't see your town here, it doesn't mean that there isn't investment proposed. These are just the top 10 sorted by cost. So you can see the top line there, renewal of the existing infrastructure is by far the biggest cost, $83 million. We have over $1 billion worth of assets, and we need to make sure that they are maintained in good working order to make sure that our existing customers get good, reliable services and continue to get that level of service. The other projects underneath are specific to different towns. So we've got a major Wodonga trunk sewer to support growth in Wodonga. We've got a wastewater treatment plant upgrade in Bright. The Wodonga-Leneva water and wastewater articulation refers to new water and wastewater networks going out into the Leneva-Barranduda growth area to support growth again. We've got an upgrade of the Kiwatanga-Ambalanga water and wastewater system, which again will support some new growth there too. We've got an upgrade of the Wodonga water treatment plant, including installation of UV, and 2 projects in Wangaratta relating to a wastewater pump station upgrade and the water treatment plant as well, followed by Rutherglen wastewater treatment plant upgrade and reuse water irrigation. So that's taking purified effluent back in to irrigate things like public open space for community benefit. And lastly, the Wodonga Hugh and Hill clear water storage. And clear water storage holds treated water ready to distribute to customers. So once again, these are draft. They're subject to feedback from customers and stakeholders and review by our board as well as the Essential Services Commission. But we are keen to hear from you, and I'll talk a little bit later about opportunity for you to provide input to us directly. So moving on to the next slide. If this presentation today has been an overview about master planning and how we're supporting growth. It doesn't get into the specifics about any individual town. So if you want to know more about any particular town, then you can come to these webinars that are scheduled over the next 6 weeks that'll cover the master plans in each of the different LGA areas. The first one is City of Wodonga, that's occurring next Monday. We will cover the growth projections in that town, the current infrastructure investments and potential future infrastructure investments, which are identified through the master planning. And then, of course, as I've mentioned, the price submission engagement and review by the board and the ESC will determine which of these projects proceeds first. So to get into these webinars, you just have to go to our Northeast Water Have Your Say page. If you put that in Google, it'll pop straight up, and select the Regional Master Planning Program tile. That is also a good place for you to provide any feedback on today's webinar if you would like. You've got 2 options. One is to put a question into the Q&A chat in this webinar, and the other one is to go in there into the link online, and there's an option for feedback if you scroll down. So moving on, thanks, Luke.
Well, thanks, Jill, Tim and Guy. It was a really great presentation. But I'd now like to open the floor for some questions via our Q&A function. I can see we've already got some there. The first question is from Eddie. When will we know what the forward investment priorities are? I think, Jill, you might have answered a bit of that, but Jill or Guy, did you want to answer, just clarify that?
Yeah, happy to answer that. Thanks, Joe. So as part of our planning process, Northeast Water has a 5-year forward corporate plan, which includes a 5-year capital program. So that's reviewed and improved every year. So each year we publicly release a 5-year forward capital program. But as part of this price engagement process, we have to come up with a 5-year plan for 26 to 31. And to help with consultation engagement of that process, we're actually going to be engaging with you and all stakeholders on a 10-year capital program. So that will be from 26 to 36. And that early draft 10-year capital program, and you saw before some of those major projects which will make up that program, will be part of our price submission engagement process, and that will help us inform the 5-year view that we will submit to the ESC next year. Thanks, Joe.
Terrific. Thanks, Guy. I've got a question from Sally McDonald. Thanks, Sally. Where can we see the master plans for each township? I'll just answer, I'm going to pass to somebody, but just a reminder, Sally, I hope you got a screenshot of that, the local government area master plans, because that'll give you, that's a really great webinar to go and see what is planned for each of the local government areas. But specifically, Guy, when can we see the master plans for each township?
Thanks, Joe. So that's part of our webinar series for each LGA. So we're going to be presenting the executive summaries effectively of the master plans at these webinars. So we've got the City of Wodonga on the 11th of November, Indigo Shire 18th of November, Toowoomba Shire 25th of November, Alpine Shire on the 26th of November, Benalla Rural City on the 2nd of December, Moira on the 4th of December, and Wangaratta on the 19th of December. So that will be your opportunity to see the executive summary of the master plans, and then we'll release those executive summaries on our website for further comment, and then in coming months we'll release the detailed master plans that sit behind those executive summaries. So
Yeah,
thanks,
great.
Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully that answered your question, Sally, and if not, you perhaps get in touch with us and we can have a bit more of a chat. Richard, is North East Water considering non-conventional technologies such as MBBR, water reuse, sludge drying technology, and which plants would they pertain to? Jill, are you the best person to answer that in terms of innovation and other technologies?
Yeah, look, I might start, but Dean might have some comments as well. I would say we already are using some of those technologies, and we definitely see innovation as an opportunity for us to provide multiple benefits and also reduce costs. A good example is our West Wodonga wastewater treatment plant, where we've got a covered anaerobic lagoon, which we are using to capture the biogas and use that to generate energy, not only to potentially power our own plant, but also to set up in potentially a circular economy opportunity with neighbouring business that also has a need for sustainable gas. Sludge drying is another thing that's being considered for that plant at the moment, because it's located right next to the Australian Gas Infrastructure Group green hydrogen plant. So that produces a lot of waste heat. And we have the opportunity to use that heat to more quickly dry our sludge and then be able to put that into innovative processes like biochar. And we've actually just finished our initial stage 1 pilot biochar process, which is producing really good results, and we're looking to move on to a stage 2. So I would say, yes, that's definitely a focus for us.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Thanks, Jill. I've got a question from David. What is the future growth and investment plan for my town, Yakandanda? Is that a Dean question or Jill?
Yeah,
I can take that.
I can answer that, Joe. Thanks. Yeah, future growth for Yakandanda. We're not expecting significant growth in Yakandanda. There is some growth, but it's not to the scale that we're seeing in some of the major towns. So the investment for Yakandanda is quite modest because of the smaller growth that we're seeing there. But yeah, look, the Yakandanda master plan will also be released upon completion of the Indigo Shire webinar that Guy just mentioned before.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. That's great. I've got, actually, this is probably a bit related to the innovation question. There's one from Kerry, and you might have already answered this, I think, Jill. How do you bring in things like innovation and emissions reduction into your master plans? Anything more on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's very much part of the infrastructure optioneering stage that we talked about in the master plan development, where we have multiple criteria that we use to assess our preferred infrastructure option. And greenhouse gas emissions and environmental impact or environmental protection is an integral part of that. So any options that provide those benefits will be really scoring favourably in our assessment.
Yeah, terrific. Well, thank you. We do have one more, almost out of time. How are small infill development proposals catered for which is important in some smaller towns? Small growth may be the result of no service land.
Well, I can probably take that one to
Yes,
say
thanks,
that
Jill.
when we do our growth projections in our master plans, we take all of that into account. We take into account infill development in conversation with council. We look at lot sizes, we look at lot densities, we look at whether or not the houses going in are going to be predominantly holiday houses or have permanent residents. We look at the likely businesses and industry that are coming in. All of those factors go into our growth projections that then help us determine, you know, where we need to get certain amounts of water to and where we need to be able to take that wastewater from within a town.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Jill. Now, listen, I do have to wrap this up. I just wanted to say thank you to the North East Water team. Guy, Jill, Tim and Dean actually joined us, who's another one of our capital planning managers. So thank you very much. And to all our participants today, our community members who joined us, particularly for the thoughtful questions. Now, if you'd like more information about our master planning program, you can find out more on our website. And don't forget to join in those local area webinars. If you miss them, we are going to record them. So you'll also be able to get those off our website after they've happened. And the other thing I do want to mention, we are engaging at the moment on our price submission. It will be our price submission from 2026, where we'll reset our prices. And that price submission is predominantly to fund our services into the future, our services and infrastructure into the future. Now, you can find out more about that price submission process at haveyoursay.newater.com.au. We are recruiting for members for a deliberative panel at the moment. So if that is something that you're interested in, please consider registering for your nomination for that. Now, before we conclude, your feedback is important to us generally about these webinars so we can improve future webinars for our community. Can I ask that you take a moment to complete a short survey by using the QR code on the screen or via a link that we'll send to you in an email after this webinar. We'll also send you a recording of this webinar today so you can share it with your friends or business colleagues. You can stay informed about all things North East Water on our website. And if you have any further questions or need information about anything that you've learned today, please don't hesitate to reach out via our website or email. Now, thank you to everyone who attended today's webinar. We hope you found it informative and we look forward to seeing you at future community webinars. Thank you on behalf of the North East Water team.